Welcome in, everyone. Again, thank you for joining us for NASCA's Winter Thought Leadership Series, Day 6. Thank you to everyone who has been with us for this series. The days in November are days here in December, and then we've got a few more coming up in January as well. So we're thrilled to have you back on the line with us today. Great conversations coming up. We're really looking forward to taking a peek into the work in Texas, looking at their energy conservation, looking at their sustainability, their savings opportunities there. We've got our Distinguished Deputy of the Year Award coming up, and then a wonderful opportunity for a round robin with everyone on the call to talk about vaccine distribution. We know that not all of our chiefs, and the majority of our chiefs actually, are not leading that in the states, but all are having some type of a peripheral function and task and assignment along with that. We really just want to hear what's happening in the states, really learn from you, discover how you're connected, what your piece of the puzzle is around vaccine distribution. So we are super excited again to have you with us. I'm Pam Goins, Executive Director here in the Lexington, Kentucky studio. I've got Jamie Rogers, Deputy Director with us, Kayla Leslie, our Program Coordinator as well. We've got our Richmond, Virginia studio. Scott, you see, all bundled up today. Scott, what's going on in Richmond, Virginia? You look a little cool.
So this is why we have two studios. Power is having trouble in Richmond today, so we're fading in and out, which is, we like to think of Lexington as our backup studio if ever we need it.
Well, we're so thrilled to have you. So everyone just be patient with us in case we have any hiccups today, but you know, that makes it a little bit more fun. So we are going to take a quick turn. If you were with us last week, we had a wonderful opportunity to network and engage and honestly just fly across the country. So before I say too much and steal any of Jamie's thunder, let's show a quick highlight reel of our Road Warrior field trips.
Good evening, everybody. Good morning and good afternoon. Yeah. I hope you're doing all right.
It is the end of the year. It is the end of 2020. We are going to celebrate and connect.
Great day planned. Again, can't wait to get into everything and so glad to have you with us.
You see a drum set back here. It's not mine. I'm not musically talented. And let's just have some fun and go down memory lane a little bit.
This is from our garden. That is a mix of about 10,000 habaneros. Oh, this is my wife.
I mean, this is the way to get him to cook dinner.
I'm coming to eat at your house instead of going to Black's Barbecue.
So we'll be sending everyone out that recipe that you can make at home with a little caramel, a little marshmallows, a little hot fudge, and a little bourbon cream. Well, let's stick with the bourbon theme. I still see we're still at the distillery in Lexington, Kentucky. So let us know a little bit about bourbon on our Lexington field trip.
Pump this into an old dried out, burn up barrel and let it sit for 4 years. You got bourbon.
Alan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jamie. And actually, we started a very interesting project on our Capitol Dome about 3 years ago.
I can't tell you how many times I get stopped, whether it's at the hotel or the gas station, hey, you guys are working on the Capitol. It means so much to the people of West Virginia. It means a lot to us, to be able to be a part of it. We are going to remove and replace the interior wall system from the bottom of the windows all the way to the bottom of the dome.
St. Louis, go across the river and visit Cahokia Mounds, and you will be in a United Nations World Heritage Site. There aren't that many of these in the world, and we have one right here in Illinois.
We are going to play Decent Jeopardy, and you will get to see some incredible sights across Washington.
I'm here on the grounds of the National Cathedral, home to 112 gargoyles, the most famous of which is this science fiction villain.
And our Jeopardy winner today with 1,800 points is Ace.
We're just going to start to come together in this virtual practice that we have together.
So those were our field trips, our Road Warrior travel band field trips. For those of us who weren't on the call, we'll be sharing that, and you can play and have some of the fun that we got to have last week. We're shaking it up, doing things a little bit differently. I want to thank all those who participated. Dustin took us in his home and made tacos. David played a round of Jeopardy. Nina showed us her record collection. Alan, he took us all the way up into the rotunda. And in Indianapolis, we had one of Leslie Crane's deputies walk us through a mindfulness exercise. So all of those were little quick trips of learning around the country. It was really just a great way to step back and for us to celebrate as a community in 2020 what NASCA has meant to all of us. So NASCA is not just this awesome, robust, academic, in-depth conversation, but it's really a community. It's really where you can call up peers around the country and say, I'm really struggling. I need you to help me with this. Let's commiserate or let's celebrate a win that I can't celebrate with anyone else publicly. So that was just a really fun time for us to all celebrate as a community. More of that being coming to you in a recording.
Jamie, are we going to do more road trips in the future? What are we looking for in terms of talent?
We would absolutely love to continue this. It was just so fun to be in everyone's homes and really play around with doing this a little bit differently. So from the cooking to the distillery, we only went to 6 states, so we would love to go to more in the future.
All right. Well, in that realm, I think for 2020 at least, we have the final, did I sign up for this? So power willing, here we go.
Bright spot. Well, we're 7-0.
And the last question, what's your bright spot for 2020? Actually, our state is doing pretty well from a revenue standpoint. I believe the stimulus funds that came through this past summer helped a little bit with that. But actually, our economy has stayed pretty stable. We're seeing businesses move into our state. And for that reason, our tax revenues are coming in pretty well. And our budget hearings, which have just completed, were done on a zero-based budget, which means that we were given the authority to use the same amounts that we had during this current year for fiscal year 2021. Our legislature is coming into session in February, so we will have to go through that process. But right now, we're in pretty good shape. And I am very pleased that even working remotely, we're getting the job done for the citizens of our state.
And finally, our bright spot for the year, I have to say, is just the fantastic staff that I have here at the Department of Administration, who have worked so hard and tirelessly to carry out any task that we've asked, whether it's, flipping the switch on a manual process that we've had to automate at the last second, or accommodating, a last minute demand, or doing something that's really not our responsibility. They have done it, and they've done it with, kindness and never a complaint. And I'm really, really grateful for all the people I get to work with. So that's definitely been a bright spot, is the team here at the Department of Administration. So thanks for giving us a chance to comment on these questions. And I look forward to seeing what everyone else has to say.
Thank you, Richmond Studio, for providing the last Did I Sign Up for This video for this series. And we're so appreciative to all of our chiefs who took a moment to record with us and just share your thoughts. I have to just take a second and echo Leslie's comments. I feel like we have the most amazing staff anywhere, ever. And I include our Richmond Envoy team in that. We could not put these together without everyone bringing their heads together, their brain power, their thought leadership. And just again, want to echo my appreciation to Jamie, Kayla, Scott, Claire, and Ace, and everyone on our AMR team as well. So thankful to have you with us. And let's just jump right into this afternoon's activities. Unfortunately, one of our sponsors, Jim Kelly from Morneau Chappelle, is not able to be with us as he had hoped to be. But let me just bring his welcome, his thanks to NASCA. They just really have been a long-time partner, wonderful supporter, and have helped us make this very, very possible. So we thank Jim and Morneau Chappelle. All right, let's transition into our conversation with Texas. We've got several of our Texas folks on the line with us today. Scott and his team had a wonderful opportunity to work with them. They bring a little bit different perspective from what we've been talking about over this series. I think you're really going to enjoy hearing about their energy conservation group, how they're working with K-12 education, their savings, their sustainability plans. So Scott, let's roll Texas.
All right, Pam, it's coming up right now. And let me just say, all of these micro reviews have been so challenging to produce because of the remote distance. And I feel like we've become best friends with the Texas communications team on Robert's staff, who've just been phenomenal in trying to capture this story together. So here it goes.
Each state has their own energy office. Most energy offices are housed in the governor's office of that state. In Texas, our energy office is housed within the Comptroller of Public Accounts, and it's used as another tool to assist other public entities and other taxpayers in the state. So our energy office focuses on being a service provider. And what we do is we use energy efficiency as a mechanism to improve the working environment and worker productivity for taxpayers and public entities within the state. Our office has three fundamental programs. The first is called Local Governments and Technical Assistance. The second is Emerging Clean Energy Technologies, and the third program is Energy Education and Training.
I think what we have learned through our State Energy Conservation Office is the flexibility is critical. The flexibility has led to sustainability. We've built some programs that no matter what the federal government does in the funding in any given year, I think we're well positioned to continue on. All of that's driven by the collaboration that we've built across industry partners, across other agencies, with legislators, legislative staff. Just all of that together, I think, has been critical. And I think a lot of that is we've continually thought forward on how do we help? Who can we serve? How can we make the system work better? And we've built the credibility.
The best friends would include just the other agencies. We work with the Texas Facilities Commission. We work closely with them. They've been extremely helpful. A lot of our early projects, when I started work here, were with the Health and Human Services Commission. They were extremely helpful in sharing their knowledge with us as well. We worked intimately with a lot of state energy offices in other states. And just like we have a program set up to share best practices and share knowledge through the state energy offices, work together in the same format, practices and sharing our knowledge and trying to find ways to help each other. So it was a combination of other states, our state agencies within the state of Texas. We worked a lot with the city of Austin and Austin Energy early on, and they were big advocates of energy efficiency and energy conservation in the state. And so they were also essential for helping us improve what we do to help other taxpayers. Well, you know, it's really interesting you bring up that question, because through our clean energy incubators, they have always really interested in new technologies. Through our work with Texas A&M University, they have new technologies. I'll give you examples for both. An example of the Clean Energy Incubator would be a company that has developed an exterior window partitioner, actually a window within a window. So we know that of the commercial buildings in the United States, a large part of the building stock has energy inefficient windows, and it's really expensive to replace windows. What this company has done is designed and commercialized a window within a window, where it actually turns a inefficient window to an efficient window by creating a seal between the two windows. And so that technology is really interesting and innovative, and I think can help a lot of companies. We also work with Texas A&M. They have a continuous commissioning program where they're developing an artificial intelligence software to enhance their continuous commissioning, knowing that every time a building is in operation, you want to find ways on an ongoing basis to improve the efficiency of operations, to identify parts that are wearing out early and on an ongoing basis. So with their program, they've developed that process, and we work with them in using that process through other state agencies and other higher education institutions throughout the state.
Battery storage, I think, is certainly on the generation front, which that's not particularly generation specific, but I think the ability to store energy is fascinating, and where we go with that is fascinating. I think that's going to be a big thing going forward. A lot of it is we do a lot of outreach with legislative members and legislative staff. We also do a lot of outreach with other agencies. And so when questions come up, I'd like to believe that those other agencies also, report the same thing. They report the same effort to be collaborative, the same effort to think forward. On a day-to-day basis, what that means is being honest and giving good feedback to legislators. I think we've had cases where legislators have entered or have introduced bills that, while well-meaning, would have restricted our ability to be flexible. And we've been very honest and very upfront about going over and talking to them and giving of how we work and how our system works. And we have been mostly successful in staving off a lot of legislatively driven procedural things that I think would have constricted us if they had gone through.
The Lone Star Revolving Loan Program is my baby because I have been involved in that program intimately for the last 12 years. What this is a revolving loan program. We use we use oil overcharge funds. We use some ARA funds that were in a loan program when ARA was in existence. And we use some federal funds. What those funds are used for are for public entities to make energy efficiency retrofits within their buildings, and to use the utility savings to pay for those energy efficiency retrofits. So through these programs, through the Watt Watchers program, we provide them with energy literacy. Through our Lone Star program, we provide them with a really good learning environment, not only for them, but for the teachers and also for their peers. Through our New Technologies program, we learn about new ways to make schools more energy efficient and again, resulting in a better learning environment for them.
I think a lot of it is the discussion about fiscal responsibility, and I think everybody's interested in saving money, no matter how you frame it up. And so I think that has historically been where we've tried to excel is to show that we are able to save energy, which results in conserving funds. And I think that's been the big thing. We do talk about energy conservation pretty openly, but I think we don't talk about, not in our bailiwick, the generations. We don't get into the renewables versus oil and gas versus anything else. We talk a lot about, once you have that energy, wherever it comes from, whatever that source, how do we make the most of it? And that's about conserving energy as well as conserving power. We have created a sustainable program through the Lone Star funds particularly, but we've created a sustainable program that will continue on. And I think it's absolutely about being good stewards of the public's money and the public's assets. Our State Energy Conservation Office, again, is built on collaboration, on continually thinking forward. So many of the programs we've created over time have been programs that were created specifically for a need we identified. And so I think that has kept us relevant. I think probably the greatest example, and one that's particularly relevant today, is in 2009 when the ARA funds, the stimulus funds, were released to the states. SECO jumped right in the middle of that. We were prepared, we had staff, we had ideas, we had lots of things. We were ready to go, and we implemented a lot of really good programs with those funds, about $270 million worth of funds. We did some things that were very innovative. Last minute, there were some funds that were de-obligated, that would have lapsed if we were not able to get them out the door really, really quickly. So we worked with a lot of people, and we identified a very quick, very simple program to help schools replace energy units. In Texas, like lots of places, we've got school buildings built in the 60s, 50s, and even earlier. And so we created a very quick turnaround program that was able to utilize those funds, that we didn't de-obligate them back to the federal government. And I think that's the flexibility. Is we've continually looked, we've built a sustainable model, so we have a staff that always has great ideas, whether we have funding for them at any given time, but we have lots of ideas flowing out. And so when we do have a need, there's lots of background work that's already been done.
Well, thanks to Robert and his team. We're so excited to hear what's happening there in Texas. And this is number 4 of our state micro reviews, and we have really been so thrilled to see the response to these. NASCA added this component to our Winter Thought Leadership series, and it's been so well received. And we just appreciate not only our states, but again, to our Envoy team to work with this. So let me also tell you that you'll have an opportunity in January to hear some live discussion, dial in, talk with each of our 4 states around the work that they're doing that we've highlighted this year. Well, now it's time for our last annual award for 2020. And I see that our Richmond studio is all glitzed and glammed up. So Claire and Ace, let me toss it over to you all.
Well, we jumped the gun a little bit, Pam. Sorry for cutting you off. We were really excited for this award.
This is the final award, as you said, for 2020, and Ace and I are thrilled to present this award today in the category of leadership in state government. So today we are presenting the Distinguished Deputy Award.
Yeah, we're not gonna bury the lead on this one. The Distinguished Deputy Award goes to none other than John Hull from the great state of Tennessee. But I want to talk really briefly about John, because John runs STREAM, and let me make sure I get this acronym right. State of Tennessee Real Estate Asset Management Division. And over John's tenure over the past 5 years, they've just done some incredible work in consolidating and managing the real estate portfolio of the state of Tennessee. If I read the numbers right, something like 6.2 million square feet of owned space and 3.1 million of lease space. So you're looking at 2/3 owned, about 1/3 leased. And John and his team oversee all of the facets of making sure those real estate
considerations in Tennessee are managed appropriately. A couple big categories for John.
Yeah, they've done a great job of managing real estate efficiencies. They have implemented some real estate industry best practices. They have improved building maintenance long-term funding, and then also developed strategic real estate plans.
Yeah, and so, of deputies across the country, this award was open to all deputies current in their position, and of course, those who've left in the past 12 months. So a huge congratulations to John for standing out across a really tight pool of applicants. And I think we're gonna head over to Christy, who wants to say some words about John.
All right, can everyone hear me? Okay, great, thank you. So when I first came to DGS in January of 2019, taking over the Department of General Services was certainly daunting for me, but I can say that one of the reasons it was so daunting is because of Stream. I mean, that is a really large division. At any particular time, we can have $3.5 billion worth of projects ongoing. But then I met John Hall, who is the deputy commissioner, my deputy commissioner, and John made me feel so much better. I can tell you that his number one priority was to educate me and help me understand everything about Stream. It made me feel so much better. He taught me about all the crazy things that real estate has to go through to work in the state environment. And we talked about transactions and dispositions and acquiring properties and leasing transactions and project management development and how to work through the state building commission. And he really dedicated time and effort and energy to getting me educated. And that really made such a difference. Not only my ability to learn about Stream, and really to lead the Department of General Services. He has served the position since 2015, and I truly believe that under John's leadership, he has done so much to create additional support both in the executive and legislative branches for our Stream division and for our Department of General Services. Through to AWS, as you mentioned, we are saving about $5 million a year in office space costs. We are also just finishing our master planning process, the first phase of our master planning process, and John was instrumental in helping through all of that. We think that once we start implementing those first few phases of the master plan process, we're going to end up saving about another 1 million square feet of state office space in Nashville and across our state. So, and our tenants have never been happier in our buildings. We have higher customer satisfaction rates than we've ever had. Many high-profile projects were finished under John. The Tennessee State Museum, the state cupola at the state Capitol building was restored under him. The Library and Archives building is getting ready to open. John Sevier building, which is a beautiful renovation for our Attorney General's office. Veterans homes in both East and West Tennessee, and Gulf War Monument. And we have about $180 million worth of renovation and new construction work in state parks that have all happened under John's leadership. Finally, I just want to say on a personal level, John is truly one of the finest and most loyal persons I've ever known. He cares more about the state of Tennessee, his staff, and his peers than anyone else I've encountered in the state. He is a wise counselor to many, certainly to me, and I have the utmost faith and confidence in his judgment as a leader. I am blessed beyond measure to get to work with John and to have that privilege. And so this award for me to you, John, is very, very well deserved. And I want to say congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations, John. We'd love to hear a few thoughts if we can.
Well, thank you. I'm certainly honored and humbled to receive an award like this, especially in a year like this. So as Commissioner Branscombe has said, we have a lot going on. So it, when a pandemic comes along, it's just a little bit harder to do. And so, when you have these best laid plans of all that stuff that she had mentioned, well, we're going to turn it upside down and we're just going to, reshuffle everything and do it all over again. But it certainly starts with Commissioner Branscombe, and she's the leader of our department. She's very supportive of everything that we're doing. So that's very much appreciated by our entire team. But if there's anything I can get credit for, it's actually to have a great staff. So we have a team of over 90 people in our group. We do everything from leasing to the capital projects to buy and sell property, all of those things. So, and it takes that entire team to get all of these things done. So some of you know us around the different states of all the things we've done the last few years. And so we're looking forward to doing more of those things. So we have a busy 2021 coming up. So we're really glad we can get 20 over with, actually, so we can get on to it for next year. But again, thank you very much. I'm very appreciative of it. So great organization, NASCA. Thank you. I've attended many things there. So thank you for awarding this to me today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, congratulations to John and to the state of Tennessee. We do so appreciate all the work that you're doing. You're definitely a leader in many, many areas, and I know your colleagues benefit from all the work that you're doing. John, you really kind of teed us up for this next conversation. It may feel like we're shifting pretty abruptly, but you made your comment about 2020 being such an unusual year. Who would have ever thought that NASCA would have had a conversation around vaccine distribution? But we find ourselves right here in this time in a very, very unsettled world still, unfortunately. We know that our state chief administrators likely don't have a number one prime role in the distribution in your states. However, just some snippets here and there, we're hearing that each of you have some kind of a role. And so we really want to talk through that today. If you were with us earlier this year, you know that NASCA did a series of national briefings where we met every single Monday, had an opportunity to just kind of let our hair down, just kind of set aside some of the activities that were going on in our daily lives and just network, connect, have that opportunity to say, what is happening in your state? Oh, hey, I've had that same thing happen here. How'd you figure it out? Well, here's some things I'm thinking about. So we just want to have this conversation today, very informal, very much a round robin. I think we have about a dozen or so states on the call. We would love to hear from you. Again, just to share, and I want to start out with our chiefs, but we've also got several deputies and other senior leaders on the call with us, just to hear from you. What is happening around vaccine distribution? Let's start, if we can, around really, is there a distribution task force, a committee, a group? Who's leading the charge, if you will, in your states? And then we'll unpack that a little bit. And I know he's probably prepared for me to do this because I do it all the time, but our NASCA president, Dan Kim, is on the call. And I know, Dan, you were telling me California actually is working from a task force. Is that accurate?
Yes, we have a separate task force for vaccine distribution. It's being led largely by the Department of Public Health. They're taking the lead, but a lot of the procurement ends up being with our task force. My task force is for logistics and commodity movement, but I do that in conjunction with our emergency management department. And so we're taking a back seat, but we've also been asked to come up with a plan B. So in order to come up with a plan B, we need to know what the plan A is. And we're hearing that the federal government is going to be doing a lot of distribution, but the policy making as far as who gets the vaccine, that's going to be with the state health officials. But there are all these things. For example, the federal government said that they would provide fully equipped items and then mentioned that, oh, by the way, we're not going to provide any gloves. Well, nitrile gloves happen to be the hardest thing for anyone to procure right now. And then we're, like you said, the dry ice. We've gone ahead and purchased 61 different cold storage units just as backups. So always just trying to think about what we can do on our end. But I am very concerned about the distribution, how we're going to make sure that the people who get the first dose also end up getting the second dose in the time frames. Vaccines are only good for so many days in dry ice. So that'll be a challenge.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Dan. And I want to stay on the West Coast and go both to Brian and then to Tawny, but we do want to talk a little bit too this afternoon around priorities. Has your state established, a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 for that distribution as to who will actually be receiving the initial doses? But let's hear again, staying on the West Coast. Brian DeForest, you want to share what's happening in Oregon?
Yeah, so vaccines is one of the areas that I'm probably least involved with when it comes to the COVID response. Our public health department is taking the lead. We have a working group, we call them the MAC, which is a multi-agency coordination group, again, led by public health, that's working with McKesson as our primary provider to get to distribute and get vaccines out the door. Governor's office has worked on the prioritization. As you can imagine, it's healthcare workers first and foremost. But we're also now going down to that second and third layer of prioritization. where it's long-term care facility workers, the vulnerable populations, ensuring equity across our Black, Indigenous, people of color populations that have traditionally been underserved when it comes to healthcare and education, and wanting to make sure, and they're also our very hardest hit populations disproportionately. And then finally, having the debate on where does education providers fall within that spectrum of priority. We're working with vaccines that are not approved for 18 and under or under 18. But what about the teachers? What about the college campuses where we know that we've got people that are they're young and exposed and may not be presenting with the traditional symptoms. So we're working with all of that. Our role at Department of Admin Services is to be the backstop in case a ball gets dropped somewhere, but also to provide the governor with that voice that says, here's the enterprise view of what's going on, so that we don't focus on single voices or single populations, but rather give that broad spectrum critique, if you will, to make sure that we're being as fair and equitable as possible.
That's very helpful.
Oh, and the other challenge, and I know that Dan's going to have this, and Tani's going to have the exact same thing. Geographic areas that are remote, that do not have cryo generators anywhere close. So we've got vast populations out there that are more than 4 hours drive away, and that becomes very tricky.
Definitely an issue that all states are going to have to consider. Tani, I know you and I spoke quickly about this, and you're not directly involved, but you do still have a small role. You want to share what's going on in Utah?
Sure. Ours is being run through a task force out of the Emergency Operations Center, so mostly headed by Public Safety and the Department of Health. So I don't know a whole lot other than when they involve our procurement office, but our director of procurement told me that we'll be getting our shipment of Pfizer inoculations, and that the first group that they're going to go to are the hospitals, because they have the ability to store them at the temperature that they need to. So that's where the first distribution will go to. And then after that, they will come into our warehouse and they'll be transported out to the local health departments with the dry ice through our alcohol beverage control trucking system. We're a very controlled alcohol beverage control state, and all the alcohol has to go through our DABC before it can go out to the liquor stores. And so they are going to use that trucking infrastructure to deliver the inoculations or the vaccines out to the local health departments with the dry ice. So because they weren't ready to deal with the keeping it cold out in the local areas yet, that's not going to be where the first doses go.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you, Tani. Kurt, what about out on your islands in Hawaii?
While we're waiting for Kurt, can I just say how I love the idea of the state of Utah using boost trucks to distribute vaccines? Tani, that is just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, well, Kurt, it looks like Kurt may not be with us to speak right at the moment, but how about in Tennessee? We both got Christy and John still with us. What's the plan, task force, committee? How are you all rolling?
Our health department is managing everything. We are helping with procuring management software for our chief procurement office is getting the software to help manage the distribution. So we're actually bringing in a consultant to help with how we distribute and where this goes when. So they're really going to be the ones who take charge of this.
Very, very helpful. Thank you, Christy.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is Tani again. Christy just reminded me that it's my understanding that the state of Utah is also going to have a vendor. I had heard Salesforce, but I've been unable to confirm that to help track the distribution. But we'll be doing something similar.
Pam, if I can jump in here, I think the distribution question is really fascinating. Drawing on friends in the British government as they rolled out today, their system was turned upside down almost overnight because the ethics panel said that the vaccine should go to care homes first, should go to the elderly. And it was all about the packaging that Pfizer was, not just the temperature, but the packages, was that they couldn't disperse them in small enough amounts that the care homes could physically take them. And so they flipped to prioritize now hospitals. So that was the priority today, but still haven't, back to your, Tony, your point about consultants and distribution models, still haven't worked out how to package the minus 70 degrees packages in small enough packages to actually make it to the care and nursing homes. And there's no solution for that right now. And so they're actually it looks like they're going to run out of healthcare workers before they've solved for that. So let's be ready for that platform. And in terms of that distribution, the UK is approximately the size of Michigan and also having problems with the rural areas. I can't imagine how that then compares to a state the size of Utah or New Mexico, Washington, and the like. So I suspect it's coming your way at some point. Oh, one other observation too is dry ice may be the new toilet paper for packaging, and that the intelligence agencies and Europol are now focused upon organized crime gangs dealing in dry ice. So not just the vaccines themselves, but dry ice as being a crime commodity for being able to get hold of. So any of you working in the underworld, that's where you need to focus on next.
All right, thank you, Scott, for putting all of our chiefs on the black market. No worries.
I was just filling to find out our representative from Hawaii, but it looks like we've lost him. We've lost Kurt.
I think we have, but I do know that Colorado, Nevada, Indiana, and Missouri are also on the call. So Tobin, Alan, either one of you want to share what's happening in your states?
I apologize. DPA is not really involved in, similar to some of the other states, we're not directly involved in the distribution of this. We do have obviously our Department of Public Safety, Homeland Security Group, and Public Health and Environment really heading up that effort across our state.
Thanks, Tobin. Alan, what about in Nevada? Anything you want to share or can share?
Unfortunately, I am not involved in that part of what's happening with the state. I know HHS are in it. I spoke with one of their CIOs this morning, but we unfortunately are not involved in that at the moment.
All right. Still helpful, though, to know really where things are moving in your state. What about John or Crystal, Indiana, Missouri, or any others on the call that would like to at least address this issue of really where things are spearheaded? Is there a task force, a committee, a group? Is it landing in HHS? Others on the call who would like to share?
Yeah, this is Crystal from Missouri. We have the task force headed up from the governor's office, and it looks like we are set to get doses this month, and those will be prioritized to our healthcare workers.
Can I ask a question of whether people expect this to be on their plate? One thing I'm struggling with mathematically is the struggle we had to stand up testing centers, which is obviously a fraction of the population because it's only those who are suspected as having a case. And obviously we struggled with that in terms of making physical real estate available and the people to staff it. Maybe it's not an appropriate question to ask, but do you feel that health departments are ready for something of this scale when we're talking about immunizing huge tranches of the population? Should this be something we should all be preparing for, or do we think the current setup is sufficient?
This is Dan. I know in California, the goal is that we would use a regular hospitals or pharmacies, ideally for the general population. I think that's going to be very, very challenging. I was part of H1N1 as someone trying to get my kids inoculated. We had lines outside in high schools for hours and hours. And that was when it wasn't nearly as infectious as COVID. So to have those kind of lines out the door in the wintertime, with people with face masks is probably not going to be realistic. I anticipate there's going to have to be massive logistical effort with taking over fairgrounds, with cars, security, maybe the National Guard. I think it's going to be a real challenge. And I don't think folks have really gotten to that stage yet, because we only anticipate getting enough vaccines for the medical workers and the skilled nursing facilities between now and, let's say, the end of January. But after that is where I think a lot of us are going to come into play.
But others, same thing. I know I can just share here in Kentucky, we're expecting to get about 67,000 doses targeted skilled nursing, and then the hospitals. It's been interesting because the first responders are almost having a mini revolt here in our state, saying, you know, well, what about us? We're the ones who are, you know, taking them from the home on a, you know, a gurney over to the hospital. We're dealing with this every single day, and we need to be bumped up in the priority list. So, you know, not only I think are we concerned about not only the pure distribution, but really which populations get that priority. Or any of your other states having that similar conversation, or other groups saying, hey, we want to be bumped up in line? See some head nods, but anyone want to share, you know, is that almost you know, let's let the governor's office work through that? You know, just love to hear your observations around that.
This is Dan. Yes, that's a real issue. I think they said that the next priority is kind of essential workers, but we don't know who essential is. And that's tens of millions of people potentially. And I know the teachers are right up there. But then also, if we give the teachers the vaccines, but they don't open up the schools, so I think there are going to be some like potential nudges where if you do this, then we can give you the vaccine sooner rather than later. But I think it's going to be very controversial. And you're right. I think this is a larger policy discussion at the governor's offices.
Brian, I saw you on mute there. Is that the signal you have a comment?
Yeah, I think all states are still struggling with, you know, kind of that economic recovery, especially in the restaurant and service industries, where that's where our heaviest unemployment is right now, and trying to get those economies kick-started again. A lot of different industries are claiming we are essential, to Dan's point. We're essential to the economy. We're essential to the safety, and so on. So it's a tough struggle. We just let the governor and the legislators be part of that conversation, and then we can try to make some informed policy decisions from there. I remember back, you know, to kind of what Dan said when it came to vaccine distributions. I remember back at Legionnaire's disease back in 75, 76, and trying to utilize not just healthcare facilities, but school buildings and whatnot. This one's going to be a little bit tougher because of the conditions that the vaccines have to remain under. That half-life for the vaccine is rather short compared to what a regular flu vaccine is. And I pressed my procurement officer this morning saying, are you sure that the health department knows what they're doing? And there's a lot of trust going on. And I just hope that we all make it through.
Brian, it's probably easier for me to say this, given that you're all state officers, and this is a recorded call. But being in a state capital over here, there's definitely chatter amongst first responders, which is, okay, it's great. So the hospital system is designed to move drugs, but this vaccine isn't actually complicated to deliver at all. The actual delivery of the vaccine, shipping it to a location is. And if we use McKesson, for instance, which is extremely effective at getting product to healthcare environments, but may not be as effective in getting to gymnasiums, or you talked about using fairgrounds as locations during the forest fires. And so I think you're all hinting at maybe be ready with a backup plan for when your governors ask for it. And it may just be in the back pocket for how to scale these things.
This is Tawny. I think that's why Utah was looking at having them delivered to the local health departments, to kind of push that responsibility of, if you want it at your local fairground or, community center, whatever, we'll get it to you, but then your responsibility is for your local.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, Scott, we've had an excellent question to come in around, this is more, thinking a little bit more forward, but as we get to more wide scale and widespread distribution to what we'll just call the typical population, we are hearing that there are some side effects, especially from the Pfizer drug. It's a two-step process. We're hearing that there's quite a bit of, headaches and some discomfort, and they're actually having to encourage folks to take the second dose, to take the booster. So are you all thinking about what this might do to your workforce? If we have wide scale sick days starting to come into play, is that something that anyone has considered or needs to consider?
This is Tawny. I think we've got a lot of people that are teleworking even when they're sick. So I would anticipate, unless they are debilitated from being able to work, that we'll still have a lot of them that will continue working from home.
Good point.
Okay, Alan Cunningham here from Nevada.
We've also had questions whether we're going to mandate people to take the vaccine, and at this point in time, we don't anticipate we'll mandate anyone of our state workers to do that. And to Tawny's point, a lot of people are working at home or taking what we call administrative time off, and our governors have basically permitted that with the stay-at-home orders right now.
Alan, I think you had a point to make. You're a little quiet on audio, so if you could speak up.
Yeah, I apologize for that. This HP laptop, the microphone isn't great on it. The one thing that we've had added on top of this is, due to the budget reductions, we're being forced to take 48 hours of furlough per employee sometime between January 1st and July 1st. So this is really going to hit us, especially on help desk and doing calls, because it's really difficult running a 24/7, 365 shop. When you add this on top of it, add the vaccines and everything else, we're just running out of staff.
Yeah, and as it relates to that second shot as well, there's been the suggestion that we almost might be contract tracing with those who've had the first shot to encourage and cajole to go get the second shot, which of course is critical to its deployment. Dan, with regard to making it mandatory, there's up in DC, there's been chatter around actually tying economic, social benefits to vaccination. So paying people to take the vaccination in some kind of form. I doubt that's going to get legs in Congress and DC, but it's an interesting notion about how do we push people sort of over the line to actually get it done. Okay.
Yeah, I think, Jamie, did you have a point you'd like to share and get some feedback on before we wrap up this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We are in a room sharing computers here. The question is more of a leadership question. You guys, how will you communicate with your own staff, your own teams? Will they be prioritized? This is more of a leadership conversation, not necessarily how it gets to the public, but how you communicate with your own teams, wherever and whenever that falls in line. And maybe so.
Leave it to Jamie to ask the hard questions. Holy cow.
Or early, I see Brian.
Brian, it's CAO first, right? Then the governor, and then after that.
Well, not quite. I guess I hadn't even really thought of that. And so I really appreciate the fact that you brought it up. I've got an amalgam of staff that, we can work remotely. So we keep them remote for as absolute long as possible. I've got a second group of staff that cannot work remotely at all. So, and they're out in the fleet, they're custodial, HVAC, building folks. And so, for me, those are essential staff that have to show up to work. And then I've got this group that kind of flows in between each of them, and those are the medically fragile. And so you know, how do you put all of these kind of things together? And so it's really tough. And I'm really glad you asked. And I'm going to bring that up with my executive team this afternoon.
All right, well, Scott, we've got one more question before we wrap up today. This is more about the distribution in the workforce, meaning, you know, do we have the capacity? Are our states prepared with the resources to continue to administer the first dose when then people start showing up for the second dose? So it's almost like we're stacking individuals that need to come in for additional doses. Do we have the manpower to do that? Has anyone even gone there yet, thinking about dose number 2?
And just to further complicate things, there are different types of vaccines. So making sure that one person, you know, gets both Pfizer ones versus one Pfizer and one Moderna. That's where I think we're using the Salesforce system, the CRM, but integrating the data sets is going to be really, really important. At the same time, this is HIPAA protected information. So I'm not sure exactly how that's working out. I think the Health and Human Services Agency is taking the lead on it, but I think that's going to be critical, following the data, tracking that.
Anybody else at that point just yet? Have you begun to think through what the next steps might look like? All right, well, I do know that there are certainly a lot of more unanswered questions than there are answered at this point. So we are excited to continue the conversation. We are going to wrap up today, but I do want to invite you to NASCA's conversation next Tuesday. You're going to be getting some email information. We've got a registration ready to go live as soon as we wrap up this afternoon. But we are thrilled to be working with McKinsey & Company to present some information and continued information and discussion around their vaccine distribution conversation. So next Tuesday, December 15th, 1 p.m. Eastern time, we'll be shooting you some information, again, just to continue this conversation, thinking through more about the process, more systematic conversations and discussions. So we look forward to having you with us for that. Well, this wraps up the December Winter Thought Leadership Series. We are so thrilled to have had you with us now for 6 days. We'll be back together in January to unpack our learning labs more with our corporate sponsors, along with our state micro reviews and their teams coming on live to discuss as well. I do want to kick over to our NASCA president to wrap us up this afternoon. Dan, any closing thoughts you would like to share with this group before we conclude for the holidays?
Putting me on the spot, Pam.
I did. I'm getting good at that, Dan.
Well, I just want to thank Pam and Jamie and Kayla and the entire NASCA team for setting up all these sessions, and Scott and team on the Envoy team. Really, these have been really helpful. They've spurred a lot of discussion, gotten a lot of us thinking, and really connected us as well. So thank you for that. I've just really enjoyed these, and I'm just very happy with how these have gone. I hope we continue to have these types of discussions, and just putting a face to a name and connecting is just so important for us to be able to do that. I know I do that a lot offline, and I'm sure you do too, but I don't think I would be able to do that as much if it weren't for these types of sessions, making me feel more comfortable in doing so. So I hope you all have a happy holidays, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Dan. From the entire NASCA team, happy holidays, guys. We'll see you in January.